Good day, everyone. I hope you guys are all well and as excited as I am to bring this back to you, this particular storytelling session, which was off the air for 2 months. I'm sorry. A lot of travel was involved, some places had to be gone to, and all that. But I'm back, and so is the bookshelf, and so is the Renoir, and so are the curtains. And here we go. So today's story is called Shakespeare and Co.'s Chinese Dumplings. It's written by Jeanette Winterson, and I was introduced to it when my friend Srija Mitra, my very dear friend Srija Mitra actually, sent me a copy of it to read, and I have it as an ebook. Now, here's what I'm going to do right off the bat. Let me tell you what I'm going to do with this story because the climax of the story is so beautiful. I'm not going to narrate it. I'm going to be reading it out from my book. And the rest of the story is basically semi autobiographical. She talks about how she discovered Shakespeare and Co. and what goes on in Shakespeare and Co. during Christmas. She also leaves an extremely sarcastic comment about how Christmas has become in the modern day and what it used to be. Now, a lot of you might be asking yourselves at this point that, why is Oshesh doing a Christmas story in the middle of August? Well, the reason for that is very simple. What Christmas is Christmas without me doing the Christmas Carol? The only Charles Dickens I like because it's got ghosts in it. So for Christmas, I will be doing a Christmas Carol. If I haven't done it before, actually, I don't think I've done it before. But yeah, Christmas Carol. Failing which, I'll do something else. I'll do one of those authors, one of those really classic authors, because Christmas is a holiday that should be celebrated in that sense. Okay, onward. So it opens absolutely brilliantly with Jeanette Winterson talking about how, and I quote, a me first mentality has rebranded capitalism as neoliberalism. And she feels that shopping malls, have taken the place of public parks and libraries and museums and all these bastions of integrity and bastions of wisdom, and it's just shopping, 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 shopping now. And she also goes on to say that she personally feels that Christmas is a time for spending with family, less spending money and more spending time, less spending shopping and more for your friends. And that is how she chooses to write the first two paragraphs. And then she says that I went to Shakespeare and Co. and outside Shakespeare and Co. there was this one signboard hung up. And the signboard said, and I quote again, be not inhospitable to strangers, lest they be angels in disguise. And apparently that was the spirit of Shakespeare and Company. And now we start talking about Shakespeare and Company, the bookstore. Shakespeare and Company was started by the legendary Sylvia Bleach in 1919 and became a home for many famous writers of the pre-World War I era. For example, Ernest Hemingway, Ezra Pound, James Joyce. In fact, Sylvia Bleach was the first person to publish James Joyce's Ulysses. And then it had a good run and it closed during World War II. But post World War II, it was opened again on the other side of the Notre Dame by a man called George, who loved books and Paris in equal measure. On Christmas, George has a policy. The policy was that he would keep the store open. He would keep the store open as usual, and he would cook a meal for the staff and for anyone else who was hungry. And among the people who came to eat were people like Anais Nin, uh, Henry Miller, and all of these other people. Now, I just name dropped one of Srija's other favorite authors, Anais Nin. I remember that we found a couple of copies of her diary in one of the boxes at Srija's place. And I can't share with you the reaction, the amount of happiness I saw on her face when she found those books. So, yeah, that's what Srija's like. Anyway, getting back to the story. So, Anais and Henry Miller, these people used to come during Christmas and they used to eat at Shakespeare and Company, spend time with George. George also had a system where he would allow writers to, sleep in the store or keep a library open for them where they could sit and read in the warmth. And this has continued, this tradition has continued. And his own daughter, for that matter, spent a second Christmas eating a supper of biscuits with Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti and Gregory Corso for company. Now, I got transported into that era of Paris, you see, because I have recently read A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway, in which Sylvia Beach is mentioned, in which Shakespeare and Co. is mentioned. And the more I read about this, mythical, magical bookstore, the more I want to go there. The more I want to just get onto a flight and go to Paris and check Shakespeare and Co. out. And someday I will, I promise you that. Someday maybe I will be sitting in Shakespeare and Co. and narrating a story about Shakespeare and Co. which I've written myself. And we'll see, let's not get ahead of ourselves. And, okay. So, like I was saying, this is basically a description of her own experience with Shakespeare and Co. It's not strictly a short story. But forging ahead, so we've discussed George's library, we've discussed the fact that he allowed writers to stay there, and we've discussed that he was generally very, very accommodating. But when Jeanette Winterson herself went to George's apartment, she was taken there by his daughter. George threw a book at her and asked his daughter, "Who is she and what is she doing in my apartment?" At the time, George was 90. So his daughter Sylvia said that, Dad, her name is Jeanette Winterson and she's a writer. And immediately George's expression softened. He was like, "Have you shown her the writer's room?" "You haven't, have you?" "Do I have to do everything in this house? Come. And he ushered Jeanette Winterson into a separate room in which apparently Henry Miller's books were there. And he was asking, have you read Henry Miller? Henry Miller is one of my, he's got this kind of, and the conversation trails off from there. Now, in present day, after George's passing away, his daughter has taken over Shakespeare and Company, and it is no longer a bookstore. It has been modernized. It is still a bookstore. The old spirit of the bookstore still lives, but now it's got Wi-Fi and a telephone and a computer, which in George's days was sacrilege, because George didn't even allow a telephone to be there in the company, in Shakespeare and Company. But now things have changed. The store is no longer open on Christmas, but Sylvia and her partner do cook a meal for volunteers as well as for staff every Christmas. And it was on one such Christmas that the only thing left at the butcher's was a nice large piglet. And so it was brought home, it was braised, and it was cooked. And then when it was served, it was a horrifying thing, because most of the table were composed of Jewish people, and Jewish people, they do not eat pork. And she wrote this in a letter to Jeanette Winterson that I never felt more embarrassed in my life. And this another similar such disaster happened when Jeanette Winterson got a second letter from her in which the Chinese caretaker of the store cooked a delectable Chinese dish which was a pork dumpling. And the pork dumpling contained onions, and there was this one guy over there who said, "I'm allergic to onions," as he was eating. And when Horn could not understand what an onion was, Sylvia googled it and showed her a picture of an onion, and she said, "Oh, this definitely contains onions." So it was a lucky day for her because the allergies didn't get triggered. Maybe she used Chinese onions instead of normal onions. Now I have to Google and find out what Chinese onions are. I'm reminded to self buy self. But and then there of course came that, and now this is the part that I'm going to read out. So let me just put on my glasses. Basically, there came a time when Jeanette Winterson was going through a rough phase. Her partner had abandoned her, and she was heartbroken. And she turned to Shakespeare and Company for refuge. And so, this is what happens. My mind was in free fall. Going mad is a risk, a journey not to be made if you can help it. Sometimes it is a journey that has to be made. But like all desperate journeys, there will be helpers along the way. So at Christmas, I raise a book and a glass to the star that led me to Shakespeare and Company, and the refuge I found there, and the creative kindness of a way of life that has never reckoned money as the bottom line. If you want to read the whole story of Shakespeare and Company, past, present, and future, they have just published it in a book, Shakespeare and Company, A History of the Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart. I wrote the foreword. And that, my friends, is the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed telling it to you. Thank you, Srija, for introducing me to Winterson. Thank you for critiquing my work. I know you're going to go through this with a tooth comb, and I'm going to get like at least 5 texts from you about how this could have been better, and I'm looking forward to that so that the next episode is far, far better than this one. I hope you guys are staying safe and vigilant. I hope some of you have gotten vaccinated. I hope most of you are not in stress, and I hope I'm doing what little I can to alleviate that stress for you. I will see you next week. This is the Bilge Master signing off.